Hello there folks, it is TIJ Gaming and welcome to a new video. Today it is time for another Football Manager 2021 team guide. Today we focus on, not my favourite club, but despite that, one of the biggest clubs in the world, the Red Devils, Manchester United. A club that have underachieved for years. Since the Sir Alex Ferguson era, the club have really struggled to maintain those sort of heights. They did finish second in the 2017-18 Premier League. But apart from that, they've had finishes of 7th, 6th, and quite a lot of the time they've been outside the top 4. But luckily for you, if you're taking over Manchester United this year, you've got continental football in the way of the Champions League. So, in this video, I'm going to be showing you a few elements of Manchester United. This video is for those of you who are potentially new to Football Manager or haven't done a save with Manchester United before. They're looking to pick up a few tips and tricks about tactics, dynamics, etc. and really try and get a head start. For those of you who are experienced, know what you're doing on Football Manager 2021. This probably isn't the video for you. But you can help your FM comrades in the comments by leaving any tips, tricks, any comments that maybe I don't mention here. I'm not going to cover any new ground particularly, but I'm just going to go through my opinions of what I'd do if I was starting a save with Manchester United. So without any further ado, let's go to it. So first we're going to have a quick look at what the club vision is, what the chairman Ed Woodward, the lovely Ed Woodward, is expecting of us this season and going forward. Now, firstly, before we go into the 5-year plan, let's have a look at the club culture. Play attacking football is the first one, a philosophy under which is expected the team will have high goals to games and shots to game ratio. Yeah, interesting, but I suppose you'd expect that of Manchester United, and the attacking firepower they've got, we'll look at that a little bit later, of Martial, Rashford, Greenwood, Pogba, Fernandes, Cavani, of course, the new signing. There's plenty of attacking power there to fulfil that promise. Develop players using the club's youth system. Manchester United have got one of the best youth systems in the UK, so there's not going to be much problem there. Interestingly, one of these is going to be an interesting one, this, and maybe tough, but ensure a good percentage of players signed are under 22 years of age and are for the future. A few other signing ones, also 23. Bear in mind, under the age of 22 are for the future, and under the age of 23 are for the first team. Two other ones here, sign high reputation players, sign English players, and play entertaining football. And really that attacking and entertaining football will come hand in hand with one another. But the main thing here, if you look at the level of desire that the club want you to play with these, developing players using the club's youth system is the one that's desired the most. And if you're not signing that many English players, well, that's only preferred. So the club aren't going to really grumble if you don't do that as such. In terms of the 5-year plan, the two that are pretty much going to be in every single save is to work within the wage budget. It's pretty much expecting. And in every Premier League save, to increase commercial revenue. Signing and using players who bring in a merchandising boost. And then again, these all go hand in hand. They don't contradict themselves. They go hand in hand, the commercial revenue, with signing high reputation players, signing young players, playing attacking football. It all goes hand in hand. And maintaining a cracking youth system is something you should be able to do. Now, luckily, and I thought these were quite nice at the end of the current season, the objectives aren't all that bad. They have qualified for the Champions League, as I said, this year. So the expectation, the required expectation, is to get through to the first knockout round. So that means to get through your Champions League group, and that's it, as a minimum. Then to qualify for the Europa League through the Premier League. Now, that's usually a 6th place finish, but if things go your way, that could be 7th. So if you have a really bad start with Manchester United, at least you've got a little bit of leeway, but I would be aiming for the top 4. They've definitely got a squad that can put themselves in the top 4, and we'll talk about that shortly. In the domestic competitions, the club really couldn't give a stuff about the EFL Cup, so perhaps use some youngsters in there. That'll please the directors, I think, and also give you a chance to see what you've got for the future, and also to reach the semi-final of the FA Cup. So the one domestic cup the club aren't bothered about at all. The other one, the club want you to do well. Obviously, it's the biggest domestic cup in the UK. And then next season, the club want you to challenge for the Premier League title. Not necessarily win the Premier League, but at the end of the 5 years, this is where it gets tough. The first year, it's all la-di-da. And then at the end of the 5 years, the club want you to win the Premier League, win the Champions League. Of course, if you do those earlier or things don't go as expected, then perhaps those objectives will be changed. But at the start of the save, that is the club vision. So we're going to accept that now. So, new players. Let's have a look at the transfer history. The big one which we're going to talk about is the free signing of Edinson Cavani from Paris Saint-Germain. This screams Zlatan Ibrahimovic and Radamel Falcao, doesn't it, for Manchester United? A very similar signing, a player at the age of 33, but he's definitely still got it. Bags and bags of experience playing in Italy and France at Napoli, Palermo and Paris Saint-Germain. Been at Paris Saint-Germain for a long, long time. And although he probably won't be first choice, I would probably play Martial as first choice. Cavani will be a cracking impact player and a very interesting one that you're going to have to use quite a bit because he's been paid £160,000 a week. Bear in mind his contract is only for 1 year, but there is a trigger where the club can optionally extend that by 1 year. So the player will have no say in that if you want to trigger that. In fact, let's trigger it now, shall we? We trigger the 1 year clause and it will go to 2022. But yeah, a definite 2 year contract in that, which is quite a nice buffer to have. Edinson Cavani, the main signing then, but there's a few interesting ones here. We've got Donny van de Beek from Ajax, £35 million. I suppose he is actually the main signing in terms of the financials, and he'll bolster the midfield. I have to admit, I do scratch my head at why he's been brought in. I think a lot of fans do in real life, because ultimately he's a player that's going to expect to play, and is he ever going to get ahead of Paul Pogba and Fernandes? Probably not, unless they get injured. So an interesting signing, and maybe £35 million wasted, but certainly one for the future. But of course, in game, you can change that. You might look to play Van der Beek a bit more than what he's been played in real life. And also, as a left back, they've brought in Alex Telles from FC Porto. Again, an experienced player at the age of 27. He's been around the block at Galatasaray, Inter Milan and Porto. Been at Porto for 4 or 5 years now and played consistently there. And he's really going to be a main choice. Luke Shaw's your second choice, and he's a good player. I can't believe Luke Shaw's now 25. Manchester United signed him when he was 17 for 27 million, and he's not really ever fulfilled his potential, I don't think, but still, he's a regular starter and a solid player for Manchester United. But Alex Telles is probably going to be your main choice. A few other signings here, a few youngsters, but we're not going to go through all of those, of course. A few considerable outs. Chris Smalling's left the club, Alexis Sanchez has left the club, and looking at these loans, nothing significant here apart from Diego Dallo, who's gone out on loan to Milan, and that's a little bit of a shame in my opinion, because if you look at the strength in depth at right back, that is lacking a little bit, and a bit of a worry potentially that Diego Dallo has gone out on loan, because I thought he was always a decent player in Football Manager. But Wan-Bissaka's your first choice, and after that probably Brandon Williams, which again, he's not a bad player, but I think we'd have liked Dallo to have been there, just a bit of a cushion between Wan-Bissaka and the young player of Brandon Williams. So next up, let's have a quick look at dynamics. No surprise about the team leaders here. David De Gea, Paul Pogba, Marcus Rashford. And to be fair, this is a fairly well-balanced squad. The new signing, Edinson Cavani, has quickly got himself into the highly influential players list. We've got Bruno Fernandes in here as well. Harry Maguire, the captain. Interesting that neither the captain or the vice-captain are part of that team leaders group. And I'm wondering how the dynamic, pardon the pun, will sit there. Another thing to note is that Dean Henderson, the 23-year-old, has come back from Sheffield United from loan. Played very well there last year, and he is definitely now a second choice for Manchester United. Who knows, you might choose to sell David De Gea because he's not been doing all that well in real life. But as a team leader, tread carefully in that one. Next up then, the tactic. The tactic I have chosen after a quick look at this Manchester United side is a fluid counter-attacking formation of a 4-5-1. It's going to be a formation that I'm going to play with a lot this year. It's a formation I like in FM. It gives you the defensive cover with Nemanja Matic at defensive midfield. It then allows the two midfielders, Bruno Fernandes and Paul Pogba, to push up a little bit and support the three attackers. We've got Greenwood in his natural position at right wing, Rashford in his natural position at left wing, and Martial up front. But Martial and Rashford are interchangeable. They're both natural at both left wing and attack, so it's really personal preference there. First choice at the back, we've got Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Maguire and Alex Telles. We've got Eric Bailly as third choice. We've got Phil Jones, Axel Tuanzebe, another youngster who could come in. Tuanzebe is an interesting player, fourth choice at the moment, but again, he could come in the future. And we've also got Marcus Rojo, we'll talk about in a little while. Bear in mind, Luke Shaw's your second choice, I would say, at left back. And Scott McTominay also is another midfielder. A side that you have to say has got a lot of depth, but equally has got a lot of dead wood, and I guess there's no better time than now to talk about it. I had a quick look through this squad, and I've put down a list of 5 names that I think I'd cash in on. Lee Grant, again, he's a player that came in as an emergency backup, but now that there's 4 senior goalkeepers at the team, it's just far too much. I'd get rid. Phil Jones, another one. He's 28 years old. He's going to be out for a little while, unfortunately, but you know he's never going to get a permanent spot, and his value is only going to go down. 17.5 million. I would cash in. The same goes for Marcus Rojo, who is already transfer listed, interest from Leicester for a transfer, and he's 30 years old. He's not going to get any better. and he's really just a backup player at this point. Another player which you're not going to be surprised at is Jesse Lingard. Yep, I don't want to be too offensive towards Lingard, but I think you ought to cash in. And the same potentially goes for Daniel James, a player who started life at Manchester United last year very well, and then seemed to flatter to deceive a little bit. Mason Greenwood seemed to come in and win all the plaudits, and since then Daniel James has kind of gone back into the background, into obscurity. So again, he might be a player that you look to develop, and perhaps he might be one of those that, technically speaking, is in the youth system. Okay, he's been bought in product of the youth system, but a player that, you know, you could look to move on potentially. And in terms of transfer suggestions, that's the next section of this video. I'm not going to give you any transfer suggestions, really. I think that Manchester United are a very, very solid team, but they need a clear out, simply put. They need 5 or 6 players to go, and really they just need a tighter squad that is going to play week in, week out. And I think that you've got the bulk of that here, particularly with the additions of Cavani. You've got Fred, of course, the experience of Juan Mata. He's 32 years old, but still a player I rate very, very highly. And if you're looking to potentially play a little bit more of an attacking system, Mata definitely is your main man in attacking midfield. That's a really positive formation if you're playing against the lesser teams in the league, perhaps. But against the big guns, you've got to have that defensive midfielder. But play Matic instead of Mata there, eh? But the final segment of this video is the youngsters to watch segments. And this is a really nice screen. It's been in the game for a few years now. This is the main screen that you look at in terms of looking at your youngsters. This is called the Development Centre. You can see a few little snippets on here. You can see the strength of your under-23s and under-18 squad. The under-23s is a very strong squad. The under-18 squad is average. There's a few players demonstrating potential, and it's a decent squad. And you can see a few bits of advice from Mike Phelan here, the assistant manager. A few potential first team candidates. You can see at 2 stars they are a decent rating for the first team. And Ethan Laird, Teden Mengi and Facundo Palestri, all players that could come in potentially in the cups if you want to see how they get on. And again, you've got the ones to watch screen here. This will change over time, and if there's any players who are injured, potentially they're not progressing as hoped, progressing more than hoped, maybe want to go out on loan, then they will go in this needs attention screen here. But a few players personally to watch. I think that Chong is a player to watch. I saw him a few times in the cups last year. He played for Manchester United. I was fairly impressed. He's out on loan this year at Werder Bremen in Germany, so a solid club to see how he gets on. If he has a good season, then the first team is the place for him next year. We've talked about Diego Dallo, who's out on loan this year. Hannibal is a player I've never heard of, I have to say, before. Signed from AS Monaco for £9 million, and he looks a really exciting prospect at the age of 17. Currently operating at championship level. It might be time to get him out on loan and see what he's made of with first team football. But we haven't got time to go through all of these here. Is Harvey Neville... surely he's one of the Neville... sons, isn't he? Gary Neville relation. Well, Phil's in the game, isn't he? So, English fluent, Spanish good, Irish basic. Well, if I could speak all of those languages at the age of 18, I'd be chuffed. Yeah, let's have a quick look at the under-18s before we go. As you can see, the new signing here, Polovovsky. Is it a new signing? I think he is. Yes, he's just come in through the youth system. He looks like he could be a good player. But these players will fluctuate quite a bit, really, over the time. And you can look at your loans here. There are 12 players overall out on loan. Of course, Igalo is in on loan. He's on loan from China. Really, he's your, 4th, 5th choice striker. Now that Cavani's coming, I think he's going to really go into obscurity. I don't think he's going to play all that much. But you've got a few players out on loan. Andres Pereira, he's out on loan at Lazio. That's interesting for me. Again, another player that... will either develop to be a first team player or another player you can cash in on potentially. Dallo's out on loan. Again, a few others here, and really these youngsters will develop. And as you can see, loan suggestions here. A few players, as I predicted before. These 3 players who are ready for the first team. Get them out on loan and see how they get on. But that should be it for the team guide for Manchester United. The hot prospect is Hannibal, as we suggested earlier. He looks like he could be a very good player for the Red Devils. And, well, if you've got any suggestions for your fellow FM comrades concerning Manchester United, feel free to leave them down in the comments. If you've enjoyed, make sure to leave a like. That means that this video will hopefully be shared to more and more people. And remember, we are all in this together. If you've got any tips or tricks, help your fellow FM comrades below. And if you are stuck with anything in FM, leave a comment down below. Either me or anybody else in the comments will try and help you with it. But for now, thank you very much for watching. Make sure to check out the rest of the content on the channel. I've currently got a beta save going with Wolverhampton Wanderers, as well as regular team guides of all the Premier League teams. I've already done a Liverpool team guide, and hopefully I'll be releasing a Chelsea team guide at 7 PM tonight. And remember to subscribe for daily Football Manager 21 content throughout the beta period. But thank you for watching. I've been TIJ Gaming, and until the next time, I will see you guys later. Goodbye for now.